diseases decrease, and you come up with an average of the effect of that particular component. So this, a healthy lifestyle combining, you can see here no alcohol, I'm sorry, and a healthy diet, optimal body weight, physically active, and no smoking will reduce the risk of diseases and mortality by 40 to 66%. Here, what I know that you cannot see it, I am aware of that, but you can see that they are all to the right, which means they increase. And this is all factors included, and here all factors included. So each one of them has a contribution, and we end up with all factors to get the percentages. And if we average them, this is what we get. The risk of disease decrease, mortality decrease by 40 to 60%. So a healthy lifestyle increased the years. It increased life expectancy, and these are data from the US. Of course, we don't have such data, and not even in the Middle East region. 14 years in females and 12.2 years in males. So it really is helpful very much for females more than males. So you can see here, I would be covering all of these lifestyle factors in this talk, which is the nutrition, having the big circle, physical activity, smoking, alcohol, and sleep, and I will be showing you the data and the evidence for their effect on our life. Now, starting with the diet. The global burden of disease. This is from the globe. This is from the world. You can see here the contribution of each of these factors to disease risk. And you can see that high blood pressure is the worst, but right next to it is the diet. So the diet occupies a very important role in our risk for disease. So they have studied all of these factors in the world and found out which of these factors contribute most. And you can see that blood pressure and the diet really contribute most. So I don't want to dwell on the global numbers, and I will move to the region. Before I move to the region, this is from the global still. So if we take the diet and mortality, and this is 2017, and the number of death, you can see that the number of death and the mortality rate attributable to the diet, you can see that it is the highest. This is the highest. So a diet which is high in sodium, a diet which is low in whole grains, low in fruits, low in vegetables, and low in nuts and seeds is a contributing factor to our health and mortality. Now, what about our region? MENA region means Middle East and North Africa region. And if you look at our region, does our region suffer from these non-communicable diseases? I can assure you that we top the world in our obesity. We have a high risk of diabetes. And you can see here, 1 in 4 adults have hypertension. Obesity, 1 in 4 adults in some part of the world, in some part of the MENA region, have obesity. We have 400,000 deaths per year from cancer, 43 million from diabetes. And this is an average, and this is our region, the MENA region. We are here. So a group of Harvard scientists wanted to study what is contributing to our high risk of non-communicable diseases, and they wanted to see if the diet contributes to these diseases. So what they did is they looked at the dietary habits, and they studied the cardiovascular and diabetes risk factors in response to our diets. So they studied 11 dietary habits and 4 metabolic risk factors, and we'll have a look at them in a minute. They studied the low intake of fruits, vegetables, grains, seafood, nuts and seeds, saturated fat, polyunsaturated fat, and high intake of sodium, high intake of the sodium, trans fat, processed meat, sugar-sweetened beverages, and unprocessed meat. I know I'm fast here, but these will be taken separately in a minute. And what are the metabolic risk factors? They looked at the effect of these dietary factors on metabolic risk factors. Metabolic risk factors being blood pressure, fasting blood glucose, total cholesterol, and our body weight. So what did they find? This is in our population. You can see also that in our population, look at the contribution of a poor diet. This brown color that you see here is the contribution of our diet to heart disease, ischemic stroke, hemorrhagic stroke, and other cardiovascular diseases, and the green is diabetes. So the hypertension is still number one, and you can see that the suboptimal diet, a poor diet, also contributes to all of these. Of course, you can see here that low fruits, low whole grains, and high sodium are all contributing to the adult population incidence of these diseases. So, if we conclude that high consumption of harmful foods, higher than the recommended levels, is harmful to us, and we call them harmful foods, processed meat يعني mortadella, hot dogs, and so on. Red meat, trans fatty acids, this is what you find in your donuts, in your cookies. These are the trans fat, they are the worst. And the sugar sweetened beverages, and also some people do put for certain drinks, they put sugar. So any sugar sweetened beverage, and sodium, of course, salt. We put a lot of salt, and when you eat outside, you are definitely eating a lot of salt. Now, lower consumption, if we don't eat our protective foods, which are the fruits, vegetables, nuts and seeds, whole grains. You know, whole grains is now #1 focus of the world. Because what we eat is always white bread, white rice, white spaghetti. And these are not considered good foods. So they are pushing the populations, first of all, to go into 100% whole grains. But as a first step, they are going to 50-50. That is, make half of your food whole grains. يعني خبز أسمر كمان رز أسمر. I know it is difficult, but at least try. When we looked at our diet, only 12 grams from 360 grams are being consumed as whole grains. Very, very little. And seafoods, you will see that we don't really eat a lot of seafoods. Now, this is from countries of the Middle East. This is the 15 countries of the Middle East. And the red line, it doesn't look red, it looks brown here. This line is how much we should consume of these foods. Fruits, vegetables, whole grains, and I have circled Lebanon. Now, if this is the brown line is how much we should consume, you can see that in terms of fruits, we don't consume the recommendation. If you look at fruits and vegetables, we also don't consume the recommended amount. If you look at nuts and seeds, we do consume more than the amount. So it's good, it's not really bad. Whole grains, way below even 50%. Polyunsaturated fatty acids, يعني liquid fats, oils. You can see that it is below. And then the seafood, look where we are in the seafood, at the bottom. So these are our good foods that we have mentioned, and you can see that we do not really match the recommendations. Now we will look, these are the protective foods. Let's look at the harmful foods. How much do we consume of the harmful foods? If you look at the harmful food, let's look at the processed meat. The brown line that you see here is how much we should consume. And you can see that each one of these, we are way above the brown line. These are all the countries, and it's not only us. This is the part of the world we are living in, and they are all almost the same. And we suffer the highest worldwide from these non-communicable diseases. So it is linked to our diet, and we should really start moving for change. So if you look at the processed meat, this is the brown. We eat much more than required, than recommended, and this is what is recommended. If you look at red meat, we also eat more than recommended. If you look at trans fat, we eat more than recommended. Sugar-sweetened beverages, we are the top in drinking sugar-sweetened beverages. A lot more than what is recommended. The recommendation you can see here is 0. It's not really a certain number, it's 0. We should not be drinking these sugar-sweetened beverages. It's allowed 0.5% only for trans fat. It is allowed 100 grams per week for red meat. This is the recommendation. How much do we eat? 700. In some places, yes. And you can see here that processed meat also is 0. No processed meat. But we do eat a lot of processed meat. Sodium, we do eat sodium or salt more than recommended.
On the sodium, shouldn't it be corrected to the average temperature of the country?
That's another thing. That's the limit that they give, which is 6 grams per day, is really universal. It's not every country has its own regulation.
Because the place which is very warm.
I know, and they sweat a lot, but the recommendation, you can't do it this way. You do an average of the world and we provide a recommendation. So, I said all of these things and I told you they contribute. Is there evidence? We will take the evidence for each one of them. Is there scientific evidence? And here we're talking nutrition. Which aspects of nutrition I am going to tackle? I'm going to tackle fats. Every one of us says, which fat is better for me? Is it butter? Is it what? Ghee? Is it ghee? Is it saturated vegetable oils like, Crisco that you use for? No, it's not a fat. It's a vegetable. Olive oil, corn oil, safflower oil, canola oil. Which one is good for us and better for us? So I will tackle fats and then salt, show the evidence for salt, then sugars, including glucose, fructose, sugar-sweetened beverages, and alternative sugars, which is the non-caloric sweeteners. And you will be surprised that they are as bad as sugars. Fruits and vegetables and Mediterranean diet. I took only one type of diet to show the evidence that it is good for us. And Mediterranean diet is our diet, is our traditional diet. So it's not strange to us, it's strange to the US. They hate olive oil. So it's good for us to follow that diet because of the evidence that it is a good diet. Now, as we have learned before, anything to the right, it means it increases. To the right of this line that you can see here. These are meta-analysis. All of these are names of scientists, and these are studies from all over the world. These studies show that the risk you can see here is 1.19, which means around 20% or 19%. So the total fat, the high fat intake, increases the risk of ovarian cancer risk. I can see the men are not concerned about this, but it could be your loved ones. So 19% increase in total fat will increase the risk of ovarian cancer. So is the evidence there? We're showing you all the studies, and most of them show an increased risk. To the right of this line, which is 1.
But you're not distinguishing in between the fats.
We're coming to that. Patience. Does he have patience? I can tell you from now. No. Now, if you look at this is trans fatty acids, and everybody asks, what is trans fatty acids? Why do you tell your children or your colleagues, don't eat fast food? Why? Because they are not saturated fat, it's oils. They boil in oil. They are deep fried oils. And oil, unsaturated oil is good. But when you deep fry in oil, this high temperatures changes this oil and forms trans fatty acids. And these are the worst. They are worse than butter. They are worse than ghee. So these are linked to disease. And WHO is giving countries that ban trans fatty acids, they're giving them, support. And they are showing them in the world as good countries that could ban trans fatty acids. So basically, when you go and eat those French fries and all of these foods that are made in the industry, not at home, because at home you cannot increase the temperature to the temperature that they use in the industry. And also, you can form trans fat when you change the fat, when you change the oil into solid. When the oil is liquid, and in the industry they try to make what they say vegetable fat. Heard that before. Crisco. You know that when you buy from the market, they tell you this is vegetable fat. And this has no saturated fat. Now, in the process of making this oil saturated and solid so that it's better for cooking or for making cakes and helping the industry, when they do it, they increase trans fat. So what I'm showing you here is that there is a 14% increase of cardiovascular diseases with this increase of trans fat. Now, trans fat and cancer risk, and I summarize them here. You can see that it increases 14%. These are the studies. It's too small. I lumped them into one slide, but it's summarized here. Trans fat, is there the evidence? 14% increased risk of breast cancer, 25% risk of ovarian cancer. Look at the prostate cancer. 50% risk of prostate cancer due to the consumption of trans fat. Now, unsaturated fatty acids lower cardiovascular diseases. Unsaturated yani corn oil, sunflower oil, canola oil. These oils lower by 15% the risk. And you can see here from the evidence, these are the studies, all the lines are to the left of one, which means it decreases. To the right it increases, to the left it decreases. And you can see here, if you can see it, it's about 15% lowering the risk. So the risk is lowered by 15%. Salt effects on cardiovascular diseases and hypertension. High salt intake will increase the risk of diseases, cardiovascular diseases, by 19%. Lower salt intake, lowering it by 6 grams per day, you will have lower hypertension, lower blood pressure. Sugars increase the risk of cardiovascular disease mortality, high sugar intake. There are people that don't add sugar to tea, they add tea to sugar. So sugar increase the risk of cardiovascular diseases. And total sugars, this is fructose. Some people say you would eat honey is better than sugar, and I can tell you honey is like sucrose. It has half fructose, half glucose, so it's the same composition and it's not better in terms of health. Maybe tastier, maybe more sweeter, so you would eat less, but in composition it has no advantage. So it increases the risk of cardiovascular disease. What is interesting and what I'm going to show you here is that some people think, okay, I'm going to take sugar-free. Sugar-free doesn't mean that it has nothing. It means it has alternative sugar substances. So, sugar-sweetened beverages and alternative sweeteners that you eat in some of the foods that you find in the market, they increase the risk of disease. Now have a look at them. Whether it is sugar-sweetened beverages or alternative sweeteners, both increase the risk by 8%. So less, but not much less. Diabetes, the risk increased with sugar-sweetened beverages and also with alternative sweeteners. Also, there is a difference, but it increases the risk. Now what is interesting is here, the obesity risk with sugar-sweetened beverages is less than the alternative sweeteners. And why is this happening? Why would obesity increases when you take alternative sweeteners and not sweeteners? Although these sweeteners have 0 calories, no calories. It's because they train your taste to love more sweet foods. So you will eat other foods that are sweet. So you will crave for sweets in that case. So this is one reason. The other reason, you think, okay, I did not eat sugar. This was 0 calories. Let me eat more of it. And people would eat more. So the evidence shows that if you resort to the alternative sweeteners, the risk of obesity, increasing body weight, will be higher. What about fruits and vegetables? How much should we eat per day? The WHO figure is 400. 200 from fruits and 200 from vegetables. So an average, this is an average, you can eat more, it's good for you. So what would happen if you have 200 grams of fruits and vegetables intake? There is a decreased risk of disease. More for which one? For fruits or vegetables? More. The decrease in all-cause mortality is more for fruits. Now you can see coronary heart disease, more for vegetables. Stroke, more for fruits. Cardiovascular disease, similar. Total cancer, similar. So both fruits and vegetables lower the risk of disease depending on the disease, but with all-cause mortality, fruits are more important. Are we eating enough fruits here? We looked at the data from this country. We're not. They are expensive. Now we come to the meat, and meat increased breast cancer risk. So the risk of breast cancer increases with meat. Unprocessed meat, 6%. Processed meat, now we know the difference between them. Unprocessed meat is what we buy from the butcher, and the processed meat are the ones that you have, like mortadella, like hot dogs. Yes? Yes, but very rare. Very rare. But breast cancer can happen in men, yes. But very rare. I mean, it's more of a women problem. But men would have the prostate cancer, which women don't have it. So there is an exchange of disease risk. So he just want to eat processed meat. Okay, but I'll show you that it affects men too. So unprocessed meat is 6%, processed meat is 9%, and you can see that the lines are mostly to the right. Now we come to the Mediterranean diet that we are proud of. It is the diet that has proven worldwide, all the studies, to be a beneficial diet. And the characteristics of that diet is our traditional diet. Olive oil, a lot of vegetables, tabbouleh. Our food is considered the best. So you can see here that if you follow this diet and do not go to the hamburgers and hot dogs all the time, you can have it once a week, it's okay. Then you decrease the risk of cardiovascular diseases by 27% and diabetes by 13%. And the data, and you can see now the lines are to the left, so they decrease the risk. The Mediterranean diet will decrease the risk. In all the studies that you have seen, that we have seen, the Mediterranean diet decreases the risk. And it decreases the risk of cardiovascular diseases, the number one death factors, by 27, 1/3 almost. Nothing is complete without mentioning COVID, because we had during this year a lot of questions, people asking us, what should I eat to prevent COVID? There is no direct evidence that a certain diet is related to COVID. I'll start by this. However, the pandemic has been associated with increase in food consumption, people that eat more, and sedentary lifestyle. So they could show an association, not cause effect, an association between increasing food consumption and a sedentary lifestyle. So they found that COVID occurs and is more deadly in people that are obese. And this is a fact of research. So how is COVID linked to, how is food linked to our COVID? You know that immunity plays an important part in really getting COVID or getting cured from it. So how? We have the evidence that link nutrition to immunity, not to COVID directly, to better immunity. Refined sugar, sugar abyad, high red meat, and low fruits and vegetables, they disturb our microorganisms in our digestive system. They cause inflammation of the gut, the digestive system, and they suppress immunity. So there is a relationship between low fruits and vegetables, high red meat, high refined sugar, suppressed immunity, and possibly higher incidence or higher mortality from COVID. So bad for nutrition. Now, now we come to physical activity, and you can see now it has a bigger circle. And what is the scientific evidence? It's not that we just want you to be physically active so that you lose weight. You will see that with physical activity, you get better health. This has been proven. I'm not going to take every one of them. It's for the benefit of time. It benefits children, and these are the benefits for physical activity for children. This is why we say a school that doesn't have protected physical activity sessions are not good schools. Because for children, you can see it reduces the risk of depression, it provides muscular fitness, the person will have better body composition. So it is good for children, it is good for adults, and it is good for a healthy aging. For the older population, it is very important that they have physical activity. مش إنه واحد أنا كبرت خلاص بطلت أمشي برتاح. That's very bad for health. So because it improves sleep, it reduces the risk of falling, it improves mobility, and it delay onset of cognitive decline. Many people are afraid of that. Alzheimer, memory, all of these, physical activity in adults and in aging will improve the mental health, the mental ability. The circulation, the blood circulation that happens during physical activity is extremely important. I'm not going to dwell on this, but of course the studies have shown that physical activity improves all of this. How much? Everyone asks. When we say physical activity, as I said, it doesn't have to be a champion. It is just 30 minutes per day. It has been shown that physical activity of 30 minutes per day lower the risk of disease, so not much. You may be here, if you walk around campus here, you will have this 30 minutes per day. So what does it do, this 30 minutes per day? It lowers your BMI. BMI is the body mass index, which is an index of obesity. It lowers your blood pressure. It lowers waist circumference, which is linked to disease, body weight, and body fat. And this has been shown, you can see here the minus, minus, minus. These are all the studies that showed that the weight, the blood pressure, the good cholesterol, the bad cholesterol, and the waist circumference all decrease with 30 minutes per day of cardiovascular diseases, of physical activity. Now, what does it do also? It decreases insulin resistance. What is insulin resistance? This is pre-diabetes. A person that doesn't tolerate carbohydrates, and you can see here that physical activity, all the lines are mostly to the left, so physical activity will lower the risk of diabetes. What about sleep? What is the scientific evidence? I'm going to start with recommended sleep for children, newborn, for infants, for toddlers, for preteens and teenagers, and for adults. And you remember we said at the beginning 7 to 9 hours per day. And of course, newborns, they almost sleep all day. Infants, maybe 12 to 16 hours, toddlers, 10 to 14 hours, and 8 to 12 hours for preteens and teenagers. And you can see here from this slide and the many studies that sleep less than 6 hours increase the risk of disease. You can see the lines to the right of one. So, lower sleep, if you lower sleep, you increase the risk. And lowering it below 6 hours is that what we're talking about. So sleep, what does it happen? Sleep less than 6 hours increase mortality by 12%. And you can see here that all the studies, these are all studies, all of them, this is one, this is to the right of one. So less than 6 hours increase mortality. Now sleep, less than 4 hours. You know, some people pride themselves and say, I don't sleep except only 4 or 5 hours a day. Sleep less than 4 hours and sleep more than 10 hours. This is really a sign of depression many times. it increases cognitive disorders. It decreases our ability, the mental ability. So sleep